Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you happen to be, and welcome to the Groovy Podcast. My name is Kent Kousen. I'll be podcasting this time from, Westminster, right outside of Denver, Colorado, at UberConf, and I'm joined by...
And I'm Baruch, developer advocate at JFrog, and I'm here in Sunnyvale, pretty sunny Sunnyvale, California.
I would hope so with that name. I mean, after all. I am truly honored to be on the same podcast with one of the top 20 Java influencers at the moment, Mr. Sadogursky. Do I have to call you Mr. now?
Okay, it's a cloud score. You know what it's worth. It's worth whatever. Everybody think about it.
Well, we'll talk more about that a little bit later. I actually have a tab open in my browser to the Jack Center website that has the list of the top 20 Java influencers of 2017, and it's got a little icon with your face right on it at number 11. I am truly honored and humbled to be just associated with you in any way. To be honest, it's truly a thrill.
All it means is that I tweet a lot of provocative stuff, and we don't need a rating to know that this is true.
Actually, retweets does seem to be one of the categories, so perhaps that is in fact one of the measures there. But at any rate, we'll come back to that. So. It's been the last podcast that we did, or that I did at any rate, was at the Gradle Summit at the end of June. And I do want to mention, by the way, and I'll put this in the show notes when we get to that point, that all of the videos from the Gradle Summit are currently available. So they're all out now. There's a YouTube channel directly dedicated to the Gradle Summit, Gradle Summit 2017. There are 43 videos there. And everything from the opening keynote through the Android state-of-the-art one from Sadogursky, and of course, I suppose I should mention also even the Jake Wharton's Kotlin introduction was in there as well. But it was a very well-attended conference. There were influencers from many of the major companies in the area. This was held in San Jose, so there were people from Netflix, there were people from Google, there were people from Uber, and from most of the major technology companies that are big in Silicon Valley had representatives there.
Yeah, so it looks like Gradle are doing good. At least their open source tool gains popularity. I just saw numbers from our community as well, the people that fill different surveys that use JFrog tools, and the Gradle is solid second as a build tool. Third as a build tool after PM.
Third?
Yeah, Maven and NPM were the leading ones.
What's that second one again?
It's just JavaScript stuff,
Oh, NPM. Oh, I didn't understand what you said. I thought I heard the word ant, and I was getting confused. Oh, okay. So yeah, the NPM stuff. Yeah, it's hard to battle that, and that's completely understandable. I know there's a big emphasis at Gradle these days on entering the enterprise market. There's the enterprise tool is really impressive, and I know that you're involved on that side as well with the JFrog and the Artifactory part. I also know that the focus of the team over the past year or so has really been on performance, and that they have made enormous gains in performance on Gradle, both in the commercial tool and through supplementary things like the build cache, that they can do now is very, very impressive. The ability to do a build cache locally and reuse the outputs of individual Gradle tasks is useful, but you can also reuse build task output across organization, across many team members and everything. Gradle Enterprise has a cache for that, and I believe it's Artifactory, right, that has one for that as well?
Yes. Yes, so Artifactory supports Gradle cache as well, of course, and if you already use Artifactory, you can just set up a new repository that will serve as Gradle cache for the entire team. I suggested the talk on a subject, but I guess for business reasons, it wasn't accepted. But that's okay. We
Oh, you
all
mean at the
want
Gradle
to
Summit?
make money eventually. Yes, at GradleCon,
While I am
Gradle Summit.
tangent,
Sorry.
I mean, again, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm working with a team these days, but to be honest, I'm only sort of tangentially involved. I certainly wasn't involved in any of those decisions. I was involved in helping to write their Gradle guides, which was another thing. I might as well get the Gradle stuff out of the way up front. The Gradle guides were launched, guides.gradle.org, and at that site you have a whole series of getting started guides on coming up to speed on a particular task in a relatively quick and easy fashion. There's also some topical guides going into more depth about individual subjects like the build cache, for example. There's also a guide on porting from Maven to Gradle as well. And then there'll be some tutorials and stuff also. So at any rate, all of that is now available. We definitely were highly influenced and appreciative of the efforts of the same people at Grails, with their Grails guides as well. Sergio Delamore, and I think Zachary Klein does a lot with that as well. And of course, there's the original on that subject that we all learned from was the Spring guides as well, the people who worked on the Spring project too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so at any rate, the Grails guides are now available, and there's a range there if you're interested. There was another thing about Gradle. I think I should mention that I said there was a new release recently. The actual release is a 4.0 release, except that by now, when we finally got to it, 4.1 as of actually today. So today is the 17th of June, or July, pardon me, 17th of July. Today, Gradle's 4.1 is in release candidate 1. And that's the first one that actually supports some of the Java 9 features as well. There's actually a guide on building Java 9 modules to see how you can produce and consume them with Gradle. That guide has been ready for a little while, but it's been held up to wait until the Gradle 4.1 release was available, because that's the one that is required in order to support the Java 9 features. There's also, by the way, have you done anything with Java 9 at all yet, with any of the module stuff?
Yeah, no, I did what everybody tried to do, and that's fire up our own software on Java 9 and seeing it failed, and then just said, okay, they will figure it out by the release time.
Did you try putting in your module info files and figuring out what the dependencies were and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, no. I really hope it will. We won't need to do that anytime soon. My strong opinion on that although the modularization was much needed for the platform, usually not needed at all for the software that is written on this platform. And the longer we will be able to, all this jigsaw will be hidden from us and transparent to us, the better will be. And especially Groovy with their special approach to private variables that are officially are accessible and should be kept this way to some level of of compatibility. I know that with Parrot, they think about introducing a special operator to access private variables, but even with this variable, those variables should be easily accessed. So I think it's a very good decision was to disable the modularity by default when running Java 9, and I really hope it will stay that way as long as possible.
Well, I know that your opinion carries an awful lot of weight in this space now, because of course InfoQ has hosted a couple of articles at this point with discussions among these Java influencers. You got involved in that as well, right? Talking about the new features in Java 9 and whether you think they will have impact on the industry. I was just reading one of them came out today, didn't it?
Yes, it did, and that's exactly what we discussed there. And what I just told you is what I told to the interviewers. I understand where the modularity comes from. I understand how it is big of a deal to get the base JVM from 85 megabytes to at 8.5 megabytes. It's all very good reasons to do that, but for the platform and not for the applications. So as long as the applications are all shielded and all that is transparent, I'm fully on board with that. As long as our code will start breaking and we will have to add more and more descriptors to be able to do what we are doing today, I guess that will be a not a good move.
Yeah, I had to get involved in just at a low level on this because that modern Java recipes book I've been working on is now basically done. It's in the production process. It will be out in early to middle of August and print by the end of the month, just for your information. So they're on the shameless self-promotion side, that's ready. But at any rate, I had to get involved in some of the modularization stuff for that. And as you say, the part for the JVM, JVM being broken into individual modules, simply means that when you need to access certain aspects of the JVM, you need to go into your own module info file and put in a requires statement. It's actually very simple to do. And of course, the basic or the base module is automatically available. It's the idea of now we have something like a module path as opposed to a class path. And whether you decide to modularize your own code or not is a completely separate decision. Where all the complications are going to come from, as you point out, is going to be taking existing code and trying to deal with that, because many frameworks are now trying to modularize, and the challenge they're going to hit is all their dependencies. For example, the Spring Framework people have been preparing for Java 9 for quite some time, and Spring 5 is supposed to come out, last I heard, it'll be roughly September timeframe. And they have been ready to try to modularize, but their problem, of course, is that Spring depends on dozens of open source and other libraries. And those have not necessarily gone into the module system. So now it's the challenge of the automatic modules, and does a name on the class path count, and what happens when it doesn't have version numbers, and now, of course, there's a way to reserve the name that you're eventually going to be without actually having to have that name in the jar file. These are all compromises that have been come up with during the delay on that. It'll be interesting to me to see how much of the open source world does adopt this, and then secondarily, how much of the commercial world adopts it. I think there were some people that were very much afraid we're going to look at a Python 2 versus Python 3 situation, where there's really a fundamental split in the community. I think it's more likely that companies who tend to be relatively conservative anyway are going to delay adoption. I bet we're having this same conversation a year from now, as I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah, right, and it really depends on the level of of the disruptancy, how much the things will break. And if we are going to a relatively easy path to upgrade, and you as a software provider don't have to even think about all this modularity, if you don't need to, that will of course help adoption. And then frameworks like Spring Framework, which for them it makes a lot of sense to use the modular nature now of Java, take advantage of that of course a benefit as well. So I think we can find a win-win solution when whoever don't need it won't be bothered with it, and whoever need it can get advantage of it. That will of course help adoption, and I think that's the decision that eventually was made, and that's the direction that we are moving towards, and those are good news.
Well, and as a reminder, the issue Spring has is the same issue in a way that Groovy has, is that there's a lot being done with reflection. And what has happened with the modularity system is that you've broken the nature of what public and private means now. Even if something is public, if it's not in an exported module, you can't see it. And if something's private and it's not in an exported module, you can't access it even with reflection. And when you combine that with the fact that the same package can't be in two different modules, this impacts a lot of what Groovy did under the hood, and of course, a lot of that's being changed with the Parrot parser. So it's I like the fact that they threw in the illegal access equals true flag, right? Illegal access flag, and make it true by default in Java 9, so that you're going to get this spurn warning about using reflection in many cases. And then they're proposing to change that to false in Java 10, but that's way down the line. We'll see how that plays out.
So that's exactly what I mean by when saying that for most of us as users, everything will remain the same. So we'll see those warnings in the compilation, but whose compilation warnings anyhow? So and that's exactly the solution when we can keep doing what we used to do without getting hurt by those changes.
Okay, now switching gears a little bit. Sergio Delamo published his Groovy Calamari. It's been a couple of issues since we've had a podcast. The latest one was focused primarily on site mesh, which is something that really gets not a lot of attention. Grails, of course, started off as your traditional Spring/Hibernate web application framework and has evolved into something you could use for RESTful web services or use with JavaScript MVC frameworks, etc. But of course, for those who do still want to build a web application, Grails adopted the open source site mesh framework right at the beginning as their way of, by default, handling the view layer. And it doesn't get as much discussion as much of the rest of the framework. So it's nice to see the Groovy Calamari have links to a lot of that information.
Right. And we see here is a talk by Colin from Spring 1 to JX, I think, right? And there is another a blog post reference to, and yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and of course that also leads to the fact they mentioned another one of the Grails guides is on using Spring Security along with Grails. And that's always a very popular topic. So it's good to see a basic guide on getting up and running with that sort of thing as well. So that's very helpful. His previous, by the way, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yep. No, I just wanted to mention that another news regarding Grails is the webinar that OSGI team did with the JetBrains team on working with Grail 3 in IntelliJ IDEA, and that happened I think a week ago, and I think it's already published, so you can watch the recording if you missed that.
Are you talking about actually Jeff Brown had a webinar just a couple of days ago? Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, that's the one I referred to. It was on the 13th, so it was like 4 days ago. Yep.
Yeah, so you said OSGI, but I think you meant OCI, right?
OCI, oh my God. Sorry about that.
That's right.
A long day.
Brown himself, who's always wonderful to watch, is an excellent presenter, did a webinar on how to work with IntelliJ IDEA. In fact, there have been a few videos from the IntelliJ people. Trisha G does a lot of their basic videos there, and she did a nice video on using Gradle inside of IntelliJ as well. They have a foundational effort growing over there to show lots of up and running with the IntelliJ videos. I think it's rapidly become the most popular IDE within the Java world. And the question is simply, the problem is it does have a bit of a learning curve for people who don't know it, especially if you come from an Eclipse-based background. So having those starter videos is a very useful thing. So yes, I'm glad Jeff did the Grails video there, and they've had a couple of Gradle ones lately as well. In fact, I think the last Groovy Calamari had a whole issue on IntelliJ plus the Groovy ecosystem as well.
Yep.
Now, speaking of all of that, of course, what's coming next week, one of the big issue for next week is good old GreatConf, right? The GreatConf in the U.S., the one in Minneapolis. The schedule and the list of speakers and everything is all published at greatconf.us, so feel free to take a look at that. I noticed you will be doing puzzlers there as well, right?
Yes. So we're doing puzzlers there. I think it will be July 27th. if I remember correctly. Yep, and of course it's drunk a drunk keynote after the beers should be a lot of fun. And I also have another talk on the DevOps related day, which will be, I think, I don't even remember. I know that it would been moved, and I didn't check yet. But they have a DevOps track that another talk of mine will be a part of it.
Right. I remember they have
And but
the dedicated DevOps day.
right.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's a track, not a day. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I mean, there's other all sorts of other talks. You know, Ryan Vanderwerf will be doing talks on all the the Alexa implementations and Google Home and all of that. He's the guy on all that stuff. I know that there'll be some talks on Ratpack. I see a couple of Ratpack talks as well. I think John Engelman's going to be talking about the Shadow plugin again, or maybe I shouldn't judge that from the title. Yes, good. John Engelman will be doing that. The Shadow plugin, by the way, just as another comment, I have another tab on that. I believe it just released a new version, I think. Yeah, 2.0.1 actually on that came out last month. Just minor changes over the 2.0, but the 2.0 one now requires Gradle 3.0 or above in order to build, and uses Java 7 and takes advantage of a lot of the newer features. It's still a very popular plugin. It's really one of my favorites. It also happens to be one of the best documented plugins, which is for Gradle, which is a very nice feature. You can actually see he's got an extensive set of what was obviously ASCII doc-based documentation, so to get up and running on that thing. So I'm sure that'll be a very popular talk at the at GreatConf.
Yep.
Nice.
And we have a keynote from Graham on the first day on Gradle, and the Kousen keynote
Grails.
from Dr. Paul King about the state of Groovy. All the good stuff that you can expect from GreatConf is all there. All the people that you can expect. Dan Woods, of course, right? All the Grails gang, and Scott Hickey is there. Every who and who in Groovy and Grails will be there, so you should be there as well.
Yeah, I mean, after all, any chance you get to see Paul King, I mean, he's coming up all the way from Australia. It's always a good thing. So that's definitely a good idea.
Absolutely.
And the Ratpack team, of course, Danny Young is going to talk about the async parts of Ratpack too, which is always, it's something that they have handled in a particularly elegant fashion. When I was doing my book-related stuff, I got to play with completable futures a lot, and I see what a challenge a lot of that stuff can be to get the coordination done of asynchronous tasks, and I know that Ratpack has handled that in a particularly elegant fashion. So if you're at all interested in asynchronous performance-related issues, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. There's testing talks, and there's all kinds of things. I guess we've marketed GreatConf enough, haven't we? But still, always a.
I hope so. I hope so, because I really hope that all our 5 listeners will come, and that what will make GreatConf profitable from the organizers, and guarantees that will be another one next year.
Yeah, it's a shame for me, because it's my favorite conference of the year, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. Yeah, I kind of messed that up. I mentioned on an earlier podcast, I've got a conflict, unfortunately, but I will be there in spirit. And if there's any way we can somehow, if you could do a podcast from there, and maybe I could participate remotely or something, or not at all, whatever you want to do, then of course you're encouraged to do so.
We will do that, and I hope you will be able to participate. We will do it, as usual. Get bunch of people in the room, trying to set up the audio and the video so everybody will be in the frame. You remember how it works.
Yeah, good luck with that, right? Thank you for Google Hangouts, right? Okay, other releases. Greddy, Again, one of my favorite plugins in Gradle. Gradle is a plugin that allows you to run web apps on servlet containers. So if you're still interested in that sort of thing, this will allow you to run on Jetty or Tomcat or both, and on clusters of them. It's particularly useful for integration testing, by the way. Gradle has released the 2.0.0 release, which is compatible with Gradle 4, supports Jetty 9.4 as well. Allows you to run override versions of Jetty, Tomcat, and the Servlet API and properties, all doing it in properties files. All the integration tests run in the latest versions of Firefox. They support Spring and Spring Boot and everything. It's a very impressive plugin. Andrei Hilovsky is very active on that. He was at the Gradle Summit, so I did get a chance to say hi. Always a pleasure, and he is actively working on that plugin some more.
Yeah, that's what's amazing in Gradle plugin is the documentation, right? So I never seen another open source project documented so well.
Okay, we do have, again, just as a sample of the guides that are coming out at Grails, the latest one I have on my list was the creating a React app with Spring Security, all on top of Grails. So that's, again, a nice little simple guide. It takes a relatively short period of time to go from starting from scratch to build up this very nice, interesting application. And I just want to make sure that we mention it to our listeners. Both of them, right?
Yep.
Grails specifically, by the way, is on 3.3 release candidate 1 now. Came out about 3 weeks ago. And that's a pre-release one. So I expect, I'm not sure how many release candidates are planned, but I imagine the Grails 3.3 release is not terribly far off. I'm sure that Graham will have a lot to say about it when he does his keynote next week.
Yeah. So we were looking forward to see what's new. And again, that's a shame you won't be there. But we will keep you posted in our next episode.
Now, I know he mentioned, at least as part of that, there was another release of Gorm as well. Gorm is up to, I think, 6.1 or whatever. And the neat thing about Gorm with Grails is that while it comes with Gorm, or what you can do apparently is you could just change a setting in one of the properties files to use the later version of Gorm. It's very interesting how they've modularized this now so that you can use a later version of one piece of it without having to download and install the framework all over again. Of course, I'd say install. Grails doesn't actually have an installer, but still, you're able to download the latest version if you want to.
Yeah, and it's important because it allows the migration to be done step by step, right? Because usually migrating Grails is a big project for an organization that relies on Grails, and trying to do it step by step. For example, migrating to a new version of Gorm first actually helps with that a great deal. And we are, I'm talking from the first-hand experience.
Okay, so that's the latest release on the Grails front. On the Groovy front, I think we're up to 2.4.12 at this point, still basically following bug fixes and things like that. We're improving Groovy while waiting for the big change, which will be the adoption of the parrot parser, either in parts of, still I'm not 100% clear, parts of it in 2.5, but definitely in 3.0. Or rather, it's the...
Yeah, so that's another big news that we're expecting to hear what's going on with them at GradeConf, and I guess Dr. Paul's keynote will shed some light on where we stand and what's going on with the versions and everything. So, yep.
The last
looking forward.
It's the macro capabilities that will be in 2.5, which will be new. The big new feature.
Yes, that.
Right, and then of course the full.
Yeah, so macro capabilities are in. They're built in for a while now, incubating. It's all solid, and that will be released. That's Sergei Gorov's work, and the parrot and everything. I think that definitely deserves a major version, so it will be 3.0. I have no insider knowledge about that, it's just common sense. But we will see what will be said in GradeConf regarding all that.
Of course, 3.0, I think, is going to be the first version of Groovy that actually requires Java 8. I think that they've waited long enough. I think that's actually appropriate at this point. Rat Pack was the first Groovy ecosystem project I know of to require Java 8. They were a very early adopter of that. But then again, they were using a lot of these extra concurrency mechanisms and everything. It's not a big surprise. Now Grails will eventually get to that point as well. I'm not exactly sure what version there, but Groovy 3, I believe, will be based on a minimum JDK of Java 8 as well.
Yep.
Okay. Other comments. There was a blog post by a person named Ted Vinke. I don't know how to pronounce it, Vinke, but he wrote a blog post on Grails 3 integration testing with Spock mocks. He had done a post late last year on just saying that Grails 3.3 had Spock 1.1 in it. He's been posting in the Groovy and Grails ecosystem for a while now. So I just wanted to mention that he did have this post come out in July to use the Spock framework with mocks and stubs based on Spock and everything. I know Spock has been built into Grails for several versions now. I think it was actually maybe part of 3.0 that they switched over to Spock. Actually, no, it's much older than that. I think it came out with 2.4 perhaps, something like that, is when they switched to Spock-based tests inside of Grails. But this one is as hot off the presses as you can get. It's got a lot of the dependencies and other things in there, so it's nice to see a blog post on it.
Yep, that's a useful one.
Oh yeah, there was another quote release. Do you know Virtual Dogbert? That name?
Yes.
Yeah, his name. Oh shoot, I'm blanking on his actual name right now. But he runs the Boston area Groovy and Grails user group. I can't believe I forgot his name offhand, and I've met him multiple times and everything. But at any rate, his GitHub account is on Virtual Dogbert. His Twitter handle is Virtual Dogbert. At any rate, he released something called Groovy Config Writer. Did you happen to see this? At any rate, it's a library. He says it's the first attempt at making a configuration writer in the Groovy format used by the config slurper. I mean, Grails has had a config slurper for a long time, which they probably got from Groovy, and this is using a library for generating those sorts of things. So you used it in a script to provide a conversion from YAML to Groovy, interestingly enough, and just found it interesting. And now there's a config slurper. There ought to be a config writer, and therefore he put one together. So I just thought I'd mention that as well and let him go give me a hard time about forgetting his actual name again. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Did you have any others, by the way?
No, I think we're all done for today, and that was good.
Not quite. I do want to
have something more. Go ahead.
Well, just let me say it this way. I have several friends who like to go to parties, and of course, July is traditionally a nice time for a Christmas in July party. That seems to happen fairly often. That isn't necessarily appropriate for us. I was thinking more for us, it's more of a Festivus in July party, with the airing of grievances and all the feats of strength and all that sort of thing. And that's what led me, once again, looking at that, to our big list of influencers here, which, believe me, I'm planning to give you a hard time about this for a while. I mean, there's a list out here now with Martin Fowler on it, and Mario Fusco, and Brian Getz, and Trisha G, and a lot of these big names. Joshua Block. I mean, my goodness, Jake Wharton on there, and they're sitting right at number 11 is this Baruch Sadogursky guy, developer advocate at JFrog, and that's a big honor, dude, right?
Yeah, no, it was. I was really humbled to be on the same list with all those great names, and Yeah, I guess it's a big deal. It was very, very exciting for me to be there. Last year I didn't make it, so I made a lot of fun of how this list is not to be considered anything serious because it just uses this kill out social media rating score. But now when I'm in it, I can assure you that this kill out is very serious stuff. It is backed by significant research, and it's very accountable.
That,
So this is the way to measure people now.
absolutely. And I assume that somehow you're going to leverage this into a raise at JFrog, right?
Well, JFrog is. I don't need to leverage JFrog for a race. That's
Oh, okay.
one
Yeah.
of the things I love in JFrog is that it doesn't work like that.
Well, somehow you have to turn this into some kind of financial award, right? I mean, it's if you
Yes,
have.
so I am working on monetization strategy. That's
There
for
you
sure.
go. Monetization strategies based on your clout score and this social authority score they're pointing out. You know, I mean, we all want to be able to see
Exactly.
who you win. You know. Oh, one last thing I wanted to point out about GreatConf. I do feel it's important to remind people that Eric, is it Helgeson or Helgeson? He told me, and I forgot again.
Helgeson,
I think so. He's
I would
working.
say.
Yeah, I think so. And he's working on a Grails 3 book that's available through LeanPub. He is giving a talk at GreatConf next week, both that will combine information about the book and also on the process of writing a book on, you know, as opposed to outside the traditional publishing companies, you know, to do something through a LeanPub mechanism. I assume then you'll be able to find out the status of his Grails 3 book as well. I mean, I bought it in early access, as many people did, and I'm really looking forward to a lot of that. He's got all the basics covered, plus he has a lot of cloud information as well, deploying Grails on various cloud providers and stuff. I think that's going to be excellent, and I definitely want to bring that up here.
That sounds very good. And again, I'm looking forward. I guess that was a one episode which was almost all of it a teaser for GreatConf, and that's exactly how it should be.
Well, I mean, it is the central location for everything going on in the Groovy community, so that does make some sense. I should mention, by the way, as long as we're talking about conferences, there is, in fact, going to be a G3 Summit this year. Did not know if you're aware of that. There will be.
No, I actually wasn't, and those are great news because that will be another place to hear and participate in the Groovy Puzzles, I guess.
Yeah, let me give you the actual information on that. So, got it here. The current schedule, from what I understand, for the G3 Summit is it'll be November 28th through December 1st in Austin, Texas. So it'll be at the Marriott in Austin.
Yeah, and the site is already up. You can go to .com and and register tickets and everything else. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the week after Thanksgiving here, and that should be an excellent week to be in Austin. Of course, almost every week's a good week to be in Austin, but that's good to know. So that we'll start talking about that when we get closer to the fall. And I think that's more or less everything. I had various other topics, but I think we're good. So why don't we wrap this up, and then hopefully you'll do one next week from GreatConf, so you can round up, you know, at the conference, and then we will talk again in August at some point.
Yes, and I still hope you will participate in the one that we will record from GreatConf.
Well,
you
I've
are definitely invited.
Coming out, you know, I got to take every marketing opportunity possible, especially because O'Reilly's decided not to sell books through their website anymore. You know, I'm gonna have to buy it at Amazon or buy it at iBooks or Google Play or what have you. So my modern Java recipes will be out in August, and I'll shamelessly promote that next month. More than I just did now.
Oh yes, we will do a whole celebration here in the podcast with cake and everything. That will be a lot of fun.
I also expect that this week we're going to hear the Java 1 acceptances, which seem to be awfully late this year, but I'm looking forward to see what Groovy-related talks wind up at Java 1 as well. That's always a good way to reach out into the greater Java community as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. We all submitted good stuff to it, and we are all waiting for the results.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being available, and have a good time next week, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you online, and I hope I will see you at least virtually at GreatConf when we will record the podcast.
Yeah, we'll see what we can work out. Great.